All right, it's mid-July and it's 110 degrees outside, which means it's football season. I guess it is for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram and Dallas Cowboys Overtime. I am Fort Worth Star-Telegram sports columnist Mac Engel, and I'm joined by my good friend Mr. Clarence E. Hill Jr., as we are now only a matter of days away from the start of 2022 Dallas Cowboys training camp, which begins next week in Oxnard, California. Clarence, I'm pretty jealous for the obvious reasons that the high temperatures in Oxnard are about 78 degrees. The high temperatures in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for about the last month have been about 158 degrees. When do you go out there, and what will be your first order of business before work?
I go out there on Monday. You got to go to the beach, man. I'm going to, leave the airport and take the PCH and drive up through the mountains and check out just make a nice, beautiful drive through the mountains and enjoy California, enjoy some water, enjoy some beautiful weather, some wind blowing against my hair. Let it run through my hair.
I hate you, and I imagine everybody watching this hates you with the idea that you will be enjoying 75-degree temperatures when the Dallas Cowboys.
Don't forget that marine layer. It gets hot when the marine layer on the tennis court. Okay, that 85, that marine layer can really burn your skin out there. You know how it gets sometimes.
No, I know. Jerry Jones. You go out Monday. Jerry Jones will have his State of the Dallas Cowboys, his annual State of the Dallas Cowboys on Tuesday at noon. Every year's. I don't want to say it's kind of the same, but it is kind of the same. One thing I know just as I sit here and think about it, do you anticipate, Clarence, while you are out for what will be about a month during training camp and the start of the NFL's preseason schedule, do you anticipate that Jerry Jones will announce an addition to the Ring of Honor this fall? I mean, I know it's up to him, and he'll do it. Sometimes he does it, sometimes he doesn't. Do you anticipate that you will see that announcement while you're out in Oxnard?
I really hadn't thought about it. I know last year he promised that Jimmy would go in when Jimmy, got the Hall of Fame, that Jimmy's going to be in the Ring of Honor. He didn't do it last year out of respect for the Hall of Fame and all that other stuff, so at some point Jimmy has to go in. But there's some other guys that are deserving that he needs to make an announcement on.
I know he could do it at any minute.
Right.
He could do it right now.
It'd be a great time for DeMarcus Lawrence to go in because he's going to get in the Hall of Fame this year. They held him out last year. No way DeMarcus Lawrence is not going in. I'm sorry. DeMarcus Ware.
Yeah.
Where? DeMarcus Ware. DeMarcus Lawrence.
Well, do you think he'll do? And I realize we'll talk more about this because DeMarcus Ware did not get in the Hall of Fame. The thought had been that DeMarcus Ware, Jason Witten, and Tony Romo would go in the Ring of Honor on the same time, similar to the way they did Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin. Do you still think that's the case, or do you think they'll space them out?
Well, I mean, I think that Ware, Witten, a lock. I guess Tony's a lock as well. But the thing about
Tony's going in.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that Ware's the one that's up for the Hall of Fame now. And so usually he wants to put Hall of Famers in, and guys that are up for the Hall of Fame, but the same reason why Woodson is in and stuff like that. He was trying to get Woodson in, but I would think that the Hall of Fame thing may have changed that whole package threesome.
It's interesting because it's a fun topic to discuss, and I know you've talked about Nate Newton, and certainly you've been an advocate for him. There's a whole bunch of other guys that you can make a case for. Harvey Martin, who's no longer with us. That's a guy that I know some other people have strongly advocated for. But that's one thing during training camp. It's always kind of interesting to see is if and when he will do it, because ultimately it's his toy, it's his team. He can do it whatever he wants. And at this point, I don't know the reluctance on why he would wait on Jimmy Johnson. No one's getting any younger. And if you're going to do it, I understood last year, okay, that's fine. But if you're going to put in Jimmy, you probably want to do it pretty soon because, like I said, nobody's getting any younger. Jimmy's in his 70s. I know he's in pretty good health, which is great. But you just can't take those kinds of things for granted. Let's move on to a different subject, which is something that is particularly odd this offseason, which is the status of tight end Dalton Schultz. If you had told me, Clarence, a couple of years ago that Dalton Schultz would have developed into a very solid pass-catching tight end, I might have believed you. If you would have said to me, yeah, Mac, Dalton Schultz is going to develop into such a good pass-catching tight end that he's going to be the favorite outlet for Dak Prescott, so much so that they're going to use the franchise tag on him. That I would never have believed. But they did give Dalton Schultz the franchise tag, which, if I remember correctly, Clarence, you might have to help me with the specifics. That means Dalton Schultz will be paid the average salary of the top 5 tight ends in the game for the top highest paid, 5 highest paid tight ends in the 2022 NFL season. Do I have that correct?
Well, the bottom line is he's going to get $10.9 million.
Okay. But that's a top 5 NFL tight end?
But he's going to get $10.9 million.
Is Dalton Schultz a top 5 NFL tight end?
His numbers suggest he is, and all we have to do is go by numbers. Okay.
Okay.
I wouldn't just on first blush, just watching him play, I would not say so. I wouldn't put him in the Travis Kelce category. But his numbers and what he's produced and what other guys are getting, and it's all about, just like the conversation of Dak Prescott and how much he made. Should he be a top 5 paid quarterback? It's all about who's going to pay you and what the market's going to bear. And timing. And that's what it is. And the thing that we knew the Cowboys had to keep him. They let Amari Cooper go, so they had to secure him. They didn't. Blake Jarwin is injured. The Cowboys didn't have really another option at tight end, so they had to keep him. They couldn't let him test the market, but also knew that they weren't ready to pay him a long-term deal and commit to him long-term at those types of numbers.
We've seen other guys with the Cowboys sign the franchise tag deals and play under 1-year contracts.
And then go and sign long-term deals with the Cowboys, though.
The one that I think of that never did was Anthony Spencer. He got the franchise tag in consecutive off seasons, played under 1-year deals. He made a lot of money in those 2 years, a lot. But the Cowboys avoided giving him the big number that they dragged their feet on. And quite frankly, it probably worked out for both parties in some regards. I can't tell, Clarence. Do you think the Cowboys have any interest in really extending Dalton Schultz to a long-term deal? I don't think they do.
No, I don't think they do it, especially at those numbers. I think he's a nice tight end, and he certainly works well with Dak. But is he special in regards to those type of money? They want to commit those type of dollars to him. I don't think so. But hey, well, he has 1 more year to prove it, 1 more to show everyone that he's worth of that money. But the bottom line is, if he doesn't get it here, he's most likely going to get it somewhere, because it's all about the market, and somebody's going to pay him.
The Cowboys for a long time had the gold standard in tight ends in terms of a guy who could block just as well as he could catch. Now, Jason Witten could not stretch a field. He just didn't. His max was 10, 12, maybe even 15 yards, and that was about it. But as a blocker, he was about as good as you were going to find as a tight end. Position has changed a lot in the last 20 years. It's more of a pass catcher guy. We saw it with Shannon Sharp and some of these other guys, Tony Gonzalez. Tony was a decent blocker, but he was Tony Gates with Antonio Gates with the San Diego Chargers before they went to LA. Clarence, do you think the Cowboys are concerned the fact that Dalton Schultz just really isn't that good of a blocker, that he really is in more mold of those guys I just mentioned?
No, I don't think it's the blocking. I think that's just not it, because they need to go and get a blocker,
For sure.
Get an inline blocker guy that can do that sort of dirty work, but they're not paying him necessarily to be, Mark Bavaro and do those, be a road grading tight end. That's just not what he is. He is, Dak Prescott's most trusted target. He's his Linus's blanket to a certain extent. The question, how much do you value that? They drafted Jake Ferguson, who could be a future Dalton Schultz. But again, in this game, the way the Cowboys play, you need more than 1 tight end.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Cowboys, if they tried to do the franchise tag on Dalton Schultz next year. You can do it 2 straight years. They did it once before. It wouldn't surprise me that if they like Jake Ferguson, but they don't think Jake Ferguson is ready to fill in that role at a dramatically reduced rate because of his rookie contract number. I could easily see Dalton Schultz getting 2 straight years of franchise tag contract offers by the Cowboys. That's just my own 2 cents based on how they handled Anthony Spencer and the similarities in terms of how they evaluate that not the position but the player. Let's move on to a different topic, which is, it's kind of odd. There'll be 75. How many guys will be out there? 80 guys?
90.
90 guys. 90 guys, Clarence. Of those 90, how many positions do you think really are up for grabs as they head into training camp with the eye of an active 53 for Sunday in September? 5, 8?
Yeah, probably about 5 or 8. Yeah, for sure. Most of the positions are set. You have to project, some guys, some rookies that are going to make the team that you want on the team. And it's not about, where you are. It's about where I project you to be and what I see for the future and how I want to develop you. So it's, again, but you have to show it. They still will keep your eyes open for somebody that comes out of nowhere and impresses and has a chance to rise up the depth chart. But yeah, we pretty much understand the roster. You can predict the 53-man roster now and pretty close within 5 or 6 guys for sure.
What do you call? You talked about that when I was out there with you. You had a nickname for guys who did really well in August. Was it Training Camp Warriors or something like that? What was that?
I can't remember.
Training Camp Heroes or something?
Yeah.
There's always some guy. Because there's always some guy like the first 2.5 weeks of camp, maybe even in the first preseason game. You're like, wow, man, the Cowboys got something with this guy. Oh, they stole it. They stole this guy. And then, like, by the middle of September, if he's made the team, he's flamed out.
Oh yeah, we got a history, a litany of guys who are all camp, Hall of Famers. Right. I remember this little running back from Air Force. I can't think of the name. Is Bo something, who rushed for, I think I estimated he rushed for 2,500 yards 1 year in training camp. Training camp record for rushing yards. Everything was in end zone. It was all exciting. Everybody's going crazy.
Well, I remember the rookie year for Dorrance Armstrong, who we'll talk about here in a second. He was a rookie kid out of Houston, went to Kansas, obviously because he played at a terrible Kansas program. Nobody knew who he was. He's a 4th-round pick. And, man, that rookie, his rookie camp, he was doing work on Tyron Smith until finally near the end of camp, Tyron decided, okay, that's enough. And he put him in his place. Well, now that's 4 years later. And Dorrance Armstrong is in a position battle to fill in for the vacated spot at that defensive end created by Randy Gregory's departure to Denver. Is Dorrance Armstrong really in a position battle to secure that starting spot? Or do you think because Randy Gregory is gone and because they know Dorrance Armstrong, that he's the shoe-in starter for week 1?
I think that Dorrance Armstrong might be the starter just because he's probably great against the run and has a chance to be that guy against the run. It's interesting because it's a 3-headed monster going to replace the great Randy Gregory, who's now a Hall of Famer, who only has 5.5 career sacks. But
right.
There's so much controversy.
Why aren't we talking about him going in the Ring of Honor rather than Marcus Ware?
So much talk about they lost Randy Gregory but you got Dante Fowler, who they signed for the Rams with the bus with not the Rams, with the Falcons. You got Dorrance Armstrong, and you got the rookie draft pick Sam Williams out of Ole Miss, who are going to be a 3-headed monster as far as pass rushers and run stoppers at that position to replace the Hall of Famer in Randy Gregory. I think that Dorrance Armstrong, number 1, is probably the better man against the run, so you probably will see him out there on first down, second down when it's obvious running downs. But when it's time to rush the passer, I would hope that they believe that the upside with Dante Fowler and Sam Williams will be the one they want on the field.
Is there any other, like you said, you're talking about 5 to 8 spots that are really up for grabs, right? We talked about it before. Wide receiver, maybe you mentioned there's some maneuverability there for competition.
Well, you got James Washington, you got Semi Fehoko, and you got the rookie Jalen Tolbert, and interesting at receivers that, certainly CeeDee Lamb is a lock to be the number 1 receiver. The problem is that Michael Gallup is going to miss the first month of the season.
Do you think it's going to be the first month?
Yeah, it could be up to a first month. Yeah, for sure. And so Steven said the first 2 or 3 games.
That's a month. You're right.
You want him healthy, and so who's going to start opposite CeeDee Lamb? Is it going to be James Washington, who's on a make good contract, 1 year make good contract out of Pittsburgh? Simi Fehoko, the pick out of Stanford last year, did nothing, or Jalen Tolbert, the guy that Dak called on the phone and said, "We need you here before the draft," and who was one of the guys who was invited to go and work out with Dak in Florida with the other top receivers and top pass catchers. And they really have high hopes of Jalen Tolbert. I think he's going to play a lot.
He might play a lot, but Clarence, you and I both know that of all the positions that need time in real game action to adjust to the NFL as a rookie, wide receiver is way at the top of the list. Way at the top of the list. It's so much different in the NFL. These guys are running so many different route schemes than in the pros than they did in college. I remember talking to Michael Gallup. Michael Gallup, when he was at Colorado State, said he ran about 3 different routes total. Well, the NFL is totally different. And this idea that you're going to bring in some kid from South Alabama and he's going to do anything in week 1 is ridiculous. It's James Washington, only because James Washington has been in the NFL with the Steelers. That's it. Now, whether or not that's any good or not, I don't know. But the fact that Michael Gallup's going to be gone for a month, like you said, yeah, that's a major problem.
And another thing is that's one reason why the running back, Tony Pollard, is also going to play some receiver. They're going to use him to help make up for not just the loss of Michael Gallup, but also Amari Cooper. He's going to play.
Do you think they'd split him wide, or is he just going to be?
Yes, he's going to. Yeah, that's what they did in the spring. That's what they did. In minicamp, he was split out wide. He was at the slot. He played receiver in college. So he's certainly an option there. And as we talk about these battles, it's not just about roster spots. It's about position. Certainly, Tyler Smith was drafted, in the first round to be the guy at left guard, but he has to go out and beat Connor McGovern out in training camp. And I think the Cowboys plan on him doing that, but that's something that bears watching.
What about center? I mean, I know this team really misses Travis Frederick, and he retired for all the right reasons, but he retired young. I mean, he still had a lot of good football, we thought, left in him, but he made a personal decision because of his health that it was time for him to retire at the age of 29 when he looked like a guy who could play at a high level. It's not uncommon for centers to go to 34, 35, maybe even longer, but he made that decision. And as such, that's been a big hole since he left a couple of years ago. We talk about guard, we've talked about tackle because of Tyron Smith. And certainly this idea that Terrence Steele is the answer at right tackle, I think is a little bit cringeworthy. But what about Tyler Biadasz? I mean, this was a center who looked at times last season like he was just flat out overpowered. Is it because it's center? We don't give as much headline and time and effort and energy to this one, because to me that's a big one. Yeah,
I mean, Matt Forniak got in the draft. He was a draft pick a couple of years ago. He's the guy that's going to compete with him initially for the job at center. But I would say that if McGovern gets beat out at guard, that they're going to look at McGovern at center as well.
All right, let's go to the other side of the ball. We mentioned a couple of different roster position battles. You mentioned defensive end, the 3-headed monster there. Is there another spot defensively that you would look at and say, keep an eye on that one? The starter that you think is the starter may not be?
Again, I think that, Micah Parsons is the end-all, be-all at linebacker for sure. But, Leighton Vander Esch, Jabril Cox, let's see, they're going to play a lot of 2 linebackers with 3 safeties. Who's going to be the guy opposite Micah Parsons? Certainly, Leighton Vander Esch came on strong at the end of last season, but Jabril Cox, certainly has a lot of potential. He looked good before he suffered an ACL injury against the Giants. And if he is a guy who has the athleticism, has the speed, if he can come back and be ready to go, it's going to be a position battle there.
All right, let's go to the last topic here, which is we are stuck knee-deep in the middle of DFW hell, and that is the dog days of summer, a summer that appears that will end no earlier than October 30th. I know we've had bad summers here. You've lived here longer than I have. This summer has been horrible in terms of heat. We're talking 2011 bad, where the low is like 85 degrees. You're going to go out where the low is like 65 and the high is 75. I hate you for that. Football has begun, as NFL training camps will begin all over the United States next week. Clarence, is there any way, as we do look at the start of football season, that Mike McCarthy erases and somehow pushes away the shadow of Sean Payton this season?
Well, I mean, it depends on how they finish. I mean, that's what it's going to be judged on, and Sean Payton is going to be the elephant in the room, so to speak. That name is going to be there. It's going to be the cloud hanging over the Cowboys season and certainly Mike McCarthy. But, my thing is that we all know his job is on the line. We all know that they have to be better than they were last year. My question is, did the Cowboys do enough to help Mike McCarthy be better than they were last year with the way they constructed this roster? I mean, we've talked about it throughout the offseason. It's been one of the toughest off seasons in team history in terms of distractions and everything else. You add in what they lost, talent-wise. On paper, is this a better team than they were in the last season? How do you take the next step if your talent is not better? Certainly, you're going to be more comfortable. That all sounds good, but everybody's more comfortable in their second and third year in the same scheme, and we feel good about the Dak's in shape and Zeke's in shape, and everybody's in shape, but everybody's saying that across the league, is Mike McCarthy being asked to do more with one hand tied behind his back because the Cowboys did not help him get better or help the team get better? Steven said that, we're going to add people after the draft. Who they added after the draft?
You tell me.
Who they had before the draft? James
Washington, Dante Fowler.
On 1 year make good deal.
Yeah, just guys. I mean, Phil, that's what they've done though consistently, which is at some point, and I can't remember the timeline where Steven decided if we're going to sign free agents, we're going to fill out the roster pros to plug in, and maybe we'll get lucky. And then sometimes they do get lucky. Sometimes
they got lucky last year, but they still had more talent to get lucky with. When you look at, they had Amari Cooper and they had, Randy Gregory was second round pick and guys that they believed in and felt good about. Right now, there are a lot of questions, a lot of maybes, and a lot of hope. They're projecting, and how does that bode for Mike McCarthy, whose job everybody understands is on the line because the specter of Sean Payton is hanging over his head.
Well, we know this. However, the Dallas Cowboys finish, and they have not gone to playoffs in back-to-back seasons since Chan Gailey was the head coach, which is beyond embarrassing. No, I take that back. He was the last coach in the Cowboys' history to lead them to consecutive playoff appearances. The last time the Cowboys made the playoff in consecutive years was Bill Parcells. He retired. Wade Phillips led them to the playoffs the next season. That was in 2007. So that was the last time. So history is not on their side as they attempt to repeat as NFC East champions and certainly make the playoffs again. We know this for sure. It will be interesting, and it sure as hell will not be boring. Clarence, have a great trip out there. Safe travels. Enjoy the weather. Please bring some of it back here when you come back here on August 20th or 21st or whatever it is. We look forward to all of your Cowboys coverage. And for all of your sports and Cowboys coverage needs, make sure to follow us on StarTelegram.com. For Dallas Cowboys Overtime, it's Clarence Hill. I'm Mac Engel. See you next time.